and I can feel you up on the roof. I see you falling off the eave. Down the window you say, hush. There's burdens on me. Rest and let it be. There's burdens on me.
Thank you, Kelly and Chris, Full Moon Eye. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. Okay. Well, it's so good to be here on Sunday, and to, Bill said this morning he looks forward to and it just occurs to me, I look forward to the ringing of the bell, because it just is a wonderful sign and a symbol of us coming together in a place of love and a place of sharing, a place of a commitment, actually, a place of commitment to our spiritual nature, to our spiritual growth. It's a place of stepping into and being open to a transformative power. And that transformative power is a power that's within our very nature, within our very being. And I get to come up here on Sundays and learn lots of lessons. Of course, the lessons don't start here on Sunday. They start usually, they're all through the week. Usually as soon as I get out of here, I'm thinking, okay, what's my next lesson? And the way I work with my lessons is I ask the question, what is it I need to learn? And then what is it I need to share? So I ask Spirit in my time of prayer and meditation, what is it I'm needing to learn, and what is it I'm needing to share? And this week, I found myself really being preoccupied a lot with world events, and really thinking about what are ways that you and I can help participate in bringing about a world that is more experiencing of the peace of Spirit. And I feel oftentimes challenged when I look out and I look at what's being presented to us through our media, when I look at what's being presented through the newspapers and the television and on the internet. And I came across a wonderful cartoon, and one of the first caption was, what is it that we can do about all of the fear that's instilled by the terrorists? And the next scene, it shows a man clicking and turning off the television. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, in many ways, there's a real truth in that. There's a real truth in not only just turning off the television, but turning off a lot of our thoughts about it. Now, it doesn't necessarily make it go away, but one of the things that what came to me is that it does help us to then maybe shift our energy and our awareness from focusing on all of the difficulties in the world to really moving back into that place within ourselves where we know there is a solution. There's a place within our own very nature that is there to help and will help us to shift not only our energy and our consciousness, but to begin to make that, by doing so, by making those shifts within ourselves, we participate in shifting the energy and the consciousness of humankind. I believe that's a big part of what we're called to do this day. A lot of the things that we're seeing and experiencing out there in the world are there to call on us to listen to that place within our nature where we can shift our energy and our consciousness about what's going on out in the world and tune into the spiritual nature and the spiritual qualities that can contribute to making a difference, contribute to changing things. I think it's important for us to really align ourselves with that which really can bring a greater experience of health and wholeness, of life and abundance. And it's not always an easy task, is it? But I do think it's one that it wouldn't be in front of us if we weren't called to participate in it. We wouldn't be seeing and experiencing these things if we weren't being called to come up a little higher. I think that's part of the very nature of it. I was thinking about the changing and the transformation that we want to see and experience in the world, and one of the things that we're doing on a subtle level is what we're doing right here this morning. And it may not be so subtle, because part of what we're really doing is we're uplifting our energy and our consciousness into a place where we can be more in alignment and attunement with that which is peaceful. And by doing that, it's a practice. It's not that one of the things that one of my friends used to always say is, talked about the novice that came to the master and said to the master, "How is it that you're always so centered?" And the master said, "Not always centered, always returning to center." And I have to keep reminding myself over and over again that that's really our work. Our work is not necessarily that we're always going to be centered, but we always have the opportunity to be in the process of returning to that center, returning to that place within us where we can experience the presence of God and presence of the divine, to really experience the energy and the consciousness that emanates from that awareness and that place of well-being within our nature. Came across a story. There was a lady on a Saturday afternoon who was doing some baking, and she was very involved in her work and very involved in baking, and she heard a knock at the door. And so she went to the door, and there was a man dressed in shabby clothes, and he was looking for some odd jobs to do. He asked her if there was anything that he could do around her house, and she said, "Well, can you paint?" And he said, "Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I'm a rather good painter." Well, okay, then there's 2 gallons of green paint there and a brush, and there's a porch out back that needs to be painted. So please do a good job, and I'll pay you what the job is worth. He said, "Well, that's great. I'll be done very quickly." And so he went around back, and she's in there baking away and didn't think much about it. And then she heard a knock at the door again. And he was back, and obviously been painting, had paint all over him, and had paint on his clothes. And she said, "Well, did you finish the job?" And he says, yes. "Did you do a good job?" "Yes, ma'am, but lady, there's one thing I need to clarify with you. That wasn't a Porsche back there, that was a Mercedes." Oh. Thought I'd get a few groans on that one. Well, sometimes transformation really doesn't always happen the way we think that it's supposed to. And sometimes it does. There's a miscommunication or misunderstandings that happen in life. Anybody ever had a misunderstanding? We do have those, and it's important for us to understand that we're going to have those in life. It's not that we come into the spiritual path and that we always we never have challenges or difficulties or conflicts. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact between 2 chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed." And there's always going to, when we are in our personalities, there's always going to be times where our one personality is going to rub up against another personality. It's true. And we're going to find that in our life, in our world, when we're in our personality nature, we're going to find that oftentimes there are challenges and difficulties, and we find that we rub up against different experiences in life, and we have disagreements, we have misunderstandings, we have miscommunications, and those are not necessarily the end of the world, but each of us is being called to be transformed through those experiences. In a very real sense, that's part of their reason for being. We're going to find that as we go through life, we can find ways of moving past those, and part of our spiritual nature and spiritual growth is to be able to do that, is to learn to move from the place of our personality, as we talk about it in Unity, and others ways of teaching, they call it the ego, moving beyond the ego consciousness and moving back into that place of really the awareness of our connection and our oneness with each other. Clark Covington, who is a manager of the space station project at NASA, once said, "With all the vast technology of our space age, there's still nothing more powerful than one human being reaching out to another." There's nothing more powerful than one human being reaching out to another. I think it's one of the most valuable and most powerful things that you and I can do, is to be willing and open to the possibility of looking beyond our differences and looking beyond our need to be right. Anybody know that one? Looking beyond our need to be right and being open to reconnecting with the essence of who and what we are, and also by doing so reconnecting with the essence of who and what the other person is as well. Reconnecting with that divine spark of light and love. In Unity, we talk about it in terms of, I behold the Christ in you. It's really being willing to see that there is a spiritual nature within all of those that we have challenges and struggles and difficulties with. Alan Patton once said, "Just as the wave cannot exist for itself but must always participate in the swell of the ocean, so can we never experience our lives by ourselves, but always share the experience of life that takes place all around us." We're all participating in this life in a way that we are all, it's like a dance in many ways. And all of our relationships and all of our experiences are like a dance. And we are at one time one is leading and another time another is leading. And occasionally we step on each other's toes, but that doesn't necessarily have to ruin the dance. We can still participate in that in a way that can be of beauty. There was a young man that was driving along, and he was sitting at a stoplight, and the lady in front of him was apparently looking at papers or something in the car, and then the light was green, and so he was getting a little disturbed and perturbed at her, and then the light turned red again, and she was still looking at the papers, and he was getting really bothered by it, and finally, the light turned green again, and she's still looking at the papers. And he starts just really getting, and then it turns red again, and she's still looking at the papers. And so he's just getting livid with her. He's just start pounding on and yelling and screaming and yelling, and well, next thing he knows, there's a tap at the window. And he looked over, and there was a police officer there. And the police officer said, "Would you step out of the car, please?" And he says, What? Are you arresting me? And he says, "Please step out of the car." So he got out of the car, and the man handcuffed him. The policeman handcuffed him, and he said, "You can't handcuff me just for throwing a fit in my car, just because I was yelling and screaming. It's my car. You can't arrest me for yelling and screaming in my car." And he says, "You please come with me." He says, so they came and put him in the back of the car, took him down to the police station, put him in the cell. Made him sit there for a couple hours, and finally he came back and unlocked him and said, "Okay, you can go now." And he says, "Well, you haven't heard the last of this. I can't believe you would arrest me just because I was angry and throwing a fit in my car." He says, "Sir, we weren't arresting you because you were throwing a fit in your car. When I saw that Unity bumper sticker and that "Peace begins with me" on the back of your car, I knew that car was stolen." Unfortunately, there are times I have resembled that remark. Not really, too much, but again, it's a reminder that we live in this world, and there are times when we do experience what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body. But part of our work is to wake up and recognize when we're in those moments that that's not who we truly are. There are times in life where we can look beyond even our own frustrations and resentments and angers and our need to be right. And that is a big piece of our work, isn't it? It really is a way that we are being called to come up higher, to be called to move into a deeper knowing and awareness of the possibilities of love and of peace and of light in our world. There was once an American television reporter who was interviewing the Dalai Lama. And the reporter seemed frustrated with this religious leader. He said, the communist Chinese have committed terrible atrocities against your people. They've taken over your whole country. And all you do is speak to the world, and your followers you'd have to do is speak to your followers, and they would rise up in armed rebellion. And yet you remain passive. Do you truly believe that it's inappropriate to fight back against armed aggression, brutality, and murder? And the Dalai Lama responded, he said, you must understand that the people who have committed atrocities deserve our compassion. They are not bad people. They are simply people who have not yet grown in their hearts to a level where they can appreciate peace. I want to read that again because it's a very powerful statement and a challenging statement. You must understand that the people who have committed atrocities deserve our compassion. They are not bad people. They are simply people who have not yet grown in their hearts to a level where they can appreciate peace. So let's just breathe that in a second. Let's just take a second to breathe that in. And to really think about and to tune in to compassion. Is it possible for us to look beyond the hurts, the pains? Is it possible for us to move into a place of compassion? In John 14:27, Jesus said, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives." Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "One day we must come to see that peace is not merely a distant goal we seek, but that it is a means by which we arrive at that goal. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means." Shirley MacLaine says, "But you can't take a crash course in serenity." It is a process. It is a process. It's an ongoing process, and it's a process and it is a spiritual practice. But it is a spiritual practice that does not only transform our lives, our hearts, our minds, but it has a ripple effect throughout the world, throughout human awareness, throughout human consciousness. Of course, A Miracle says the voice for God is always quiet because it speaks for peace. Peace is stronger than war because it heals. War is division, not increase. No one gains from strife. No one gains from strife. Interesting. So, the thing I'll share with you is that I'm going to be really honest, is that I'm not always peaceful.
No.
Yeah, it's true. I know that some of you find that shocking, but I'm not always peaceful. But I do know that when I'm not in that place of peace, that I have a choice. I'm learning as I go along to recognize that in those times and in those moments, one of the best things and the highest things I can do is to notice and pay attention to the choices that I'm making. Now, sometimes that's not an easy thing. Sometimes when you are faced with a conflict with another person, you want to jump in there with both feet, right? But one of the things that I recall is to recognize that even in the midst of those conflicts, that there's something there that's being called for. There's something there that's being asked for. The Course in Miracles says that there's only two real emotions in life. There's either fear or love. And if I'm in a state of fear, what I'm really crying out for is to experience love. If I'm in a state of fear, and I do get in a state of fear, we all do, I think, from time to time, what our heart is really yearning for is to move back into that energy and that place of love. And so if I can recognize that that's going on inside of me, I know that that's also going on inside of the other that I might be in conflict with. And so ultimately, what anyone is ever asking you for is to help them to experience moving back into that place of love. I remember actually when I was a very mystical kind of experience that I had when I was in college, and I had it was during final exams, and it was a very intense time, and we were doing just major studying, and really cramming for all our exams, and I went to a school that was, it wasn't a slouch school by any means. It was, they expected quite a bit of us, and I remember there was a lot of people going through a lot of stress during that time. And as soon as the exams were over, we had this big party. Had this big party out in nature. It was out on a riverbank, and it was great. I was looking forward to it, and I was so relieved to have all my exams finished. And I felt so relieved, just the stress it was like it was dissipating. And I was standing, it was a nice cool day, and they had a bonfire going. I was standing next to this bonfire, and I was just really enjoying the nature and enjoying the presence, just enjoying the day so much, and really in a good space. And two of my very good friends got into a fist fight right in front of me.
Oh, wow.
And the amazing thing about that is that my nature is that I'm the middle child. I tend to be the peacemaker. I'm always trying to make sure that everybody's peaceful and that sort of thing, and is not fighting. But during that time, while they were having this fist fight, I was absolutely thinking, what really came to me so clear was, this is absolutely perfect. These two guys had been needing to do this for a long time. And I just was there blessing both of them and just feeling very good about, it's like, not that I wanted them to fight, but it's like, I knew it was absolutely perfect. That's exactly what they needed to be doing. And the world was exactly the way it was supposed to be. And I want you to know that stuck with me in life. It stuck with me in a lot of ways, because later on, these two guys, of course, made up, and they were still good friends, and for whatever reason, they needed to do that. And for some reason, I needed to be able to be at peace with that. So oftentimes we go through life experiences and we think life is supposed to be a certain way, and there's not supposed to be any conflicts. There's not supposed to be any challenges. There's not supposed to be any difficulties. We're not supposed to fight and fuss and, But the reality is that we do have conflicts. We're going to have conflicts. The question is, can we move back into a place of peace? Can we allow ourselves to take the steps that we need to take to move ourselves back into that place of peace? That's the real work, isn't it? It's not that we're never going to have those. It's just that we have the opportunity in those times to shift and to ask ourselves the question and to look at the situation from a different perspective, to flip the cards so that we're seeing things from a different way, and to look at each other and ourselves from different sets of glasses, perhaps, to be able to ask those questions of how can I move back into that place of peace. Mother Teresa was once asked, she says, I was once asked why I don't participate in anti-war demonstrations. And I said that I will never do that. But as soon as you have a pro-peace rally, I'll be there. I think it really is important for us to really pay attention to what we're putting our energy into and our focus into. If we're focusing on resisting conflict, aren't we also in conflict? There was a thing I read from Jack Ensign Addington, wonderful spiritual teacher. He said, Jesus had found his inner peace to the point that nothing anyone did to him could ever take it from him. He had found the kingdom of God within himself. And we think we live in a different time, but Jesus lived in a very troubled time. The pressure of living under Roman domination is something most of us have never had to experience. There were few rights, little civil liberty for the Jews of this time, but he had found the peace that passes understanding. Not as the world gives, he said. So, Nelson Mandela said, if you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. I'm not sure the best way to do that when there are things that are absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. There is insanity in the world. In fact, in many ways, what we see out here in the world is the result of insanity. Wouldn't you agree? But if we join in the insanity by resisting it, aren't we just as insane? So our work really is not to try and do away with the insanity, but come into an awareness of our sanity. To come into awareness of our true way of knowing and thinking, and to move into a place of peace within ourselves, and then try every step that we take to come more from that place. To come more from that place of openness, of understanding, of care, of compassion. Eric Butterworth in Discover the Power Within says, peacemaking is not a thing that you have to do in the world around you. In the most dramatic way, the world around you will be changed in the twinkling of an eye as you change. An electric light doesn't have to go out in the room and try to sweep away the darkness. When the light is turned on, the light radiates and the darkness disappears. It's as simple as that, but it's not easy. So turning on the light. We find inner peace by turning on the light, by moving back into a place within ourselves where we are open to allowing something more, something greater, something higher to work in us and through us than our limited need to be right. Our limited need to have the world be the way we think it's supposed to be. Darn, I thought I had it all wrapped up. If I could just get the world to be the way I think it's supposed to be, I could be at peace, right? It doesn't work that way, does it? But if I allow myself to move into more of a place of peace, what I find is the world begins to shift. I begin to see the world differently. I begin to experience the world differently, and I'm able to be a part of making a choice and a decision that can shift my awareness and my energy and those around me into a more peaceful place. This was quoted by Dr. Martin Luther King. It was originally from A.J. Muste. He says, "There is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Peace is the way." And Thomas à Kempis says, first keep the peace within yourself, and then you can also bring peace to others. Well, I thought about this, and one of the things that I am aware of is that, I asked the question, what can I do to help bring about more peace in the world? What can I, as an individual or as a person, do to help bring about more peace in the world? And what came to me is a saying that, excuse me, plant, What came to me is a saying that we actually have written on our whiteboard in our kitchen. Julie wrote it up there, and it's from the Abraham Hicks works. And it says that when you are out of vibrational alignment, there is no action that will solve the problem. Let me read that again, because I think this is a very important and valuable concept in awareness. When you are out of vibrational alignment, there's no action that will solve the problem. And so what that speaks to me is, if I'm not in a place of peace, if I'm asking the question, what can I do to bring more peace in the world, and I'm not in an energy and a consciousness and a vibration of peace, any action that I take is going to be adding more challenge and more difficulty and conflict in the world. And so my number one work, my number one thing that I can do to make a difference and to help bring more peace in the world is to really learn how to be more in that energy of peace within myself. Now, that's not to say that if there is not injustice in the world that I'm supposed to turn my back and not say or do anything. But if I do that not from a place of peace, I'm actually contributing even more to the energies of conflict. Does that make sense? And so if we are standing up for justice, if we are standing up for truth, if we are standing up for what is right, if we're standing up for the power of spirit in the world, it's important for us to stand in that energy, in that consciousness of peace, and make that statement from that place of knowing that there's only one presence and one power in the universe, that I'm a part of that presence and power, and that presence and power is the power that makes the difference. It's the difference between force and power. Dr. Hawkins talks about this. Force is something that we do out here in the world to make a change because we don't think it's the way it's supposed to be. Power is standing in the knowing that there's something greater that can make the change and can move us in ways that will allow that change to be made in ways that we may perhaps not even dream possible. So as I was reflecting on this, it came back to me that the Course in Miracles in Lesson 34 says, I could see peace instead of this. A big part of our work in helping to bring peace and establish peace in our lives and in our world is this very activity, asking this very question, making this statement. I could see peace instead of this. The idea today begins to describe the conditions that prevail in the other way of seeing. In other words, it's pointing out that we're not seeing peace. Peace of mind is clearly an internal matter. It must begin with your own thoughts and then extend outward. It is from your peaceful mind that a peaceful perception of the world arises. Let me read that again. It is from your peaceful mind that a peaceful perception of the world arises. You and I are being called, I think, daily to participate, and we are making a choice. We're getting an opportunity. I say daily, it's probably moment by moment, oftentimes, wouldn't you agree? Oftentimes, moment by moment, we have the opportunity to shift our perceptions, to shift our perspective, and ask the question, and really to affirm, I could see peace instead of this. The next question, of course, is, am I making that choice? Am I making that choice? In John 14:27, Jesus said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. We have a choice. We have a choice. We have a choice between love and fear. We're making that choice all the time, whether we're conscious of it or aware of it. Part of our work is to become conscious of making the choice for love. That should keep us busy. All right, let's move into our meditation time. As we move into that place within us of peace, we allow ourselves to be open and receptive to knowing and feeling and experiencing that essence of peace. Breathing into the heart space. We begin with simply an energy and a vibration of appreciation. As we begin to notice and be conscious of those things that we have to be appreciative of. And as we feel that energy of appreciation in our hearts, of even the smallest things, our breath, appreciation for even the chair that's holding you up right now, appreciation for the very life that flows through your body, the beating of your heart. Appreciation for the senses of sight and sound and smell and touch. Appreciation and as you let that energy of appreciation expand in your heart, let it expand for an appreciation for that peace that is beyond our thoughts, appreciation for a peace that's beyond any emotions that we might be feeling. Just acknowledging the emotions and feelings, but being open to and being willing to choose peace. Be still. Peace. Be still. Peace. Take another nice deep breath now. And give thanks for that breath. And another nice deep breath, letting your heart be open, receptive, allowing, and flowing. Take another nice deep breath and gently open your eyes. Be present here and now.